The second seminar this afternoon is hosted by BVC title sponsor US Bank. It's a panel discussion on funding, who, what, when, where, and why when it comes to the almighty dollar. Joining us today to moderate that important funding discussion is Ryan Brown, Vice President and Business Banking Relationship Manager at US Bank. And to offer even more perspective, Ryan will be joined by Jenn Lynch, BVC Fund Manager for both the Growth and Impact Funds and partner with Portland Seed Fund, along with Tom Schnell, Business Finance Officer with Business Oregon. So that's a lot of financial related talent in one discussion. I'm really excited. So come on up, Ryan, Jenn, and Tom. I think we're probably going to need 2 extra microphones, and I do have chairs for you, the 3 of you, if you're interested. And you could put your hands together for Ryan, Jenn, and Tom. Why not?
No, but we really do appreciate being a part of BVC and supporting it. And I was just talking with the team earlier this week, and there's a number of clients that we work with today that have come about through connections that have made through the venture conference, and we've seen a lot of positive things come about because of it. So it's good to be back up here on this panel today. Backgrounds. I've been with the bank for 16 years, business banking relationship manager. What I do is I work with businesses, manage their entire banking relationship all throughout Central Oregon. I was pretty much almost late to this because I was supporting a business, helping them try to thrive and succeed, and really that's our focus, right? It's just doing anything and everything we possibly can to help the businesses, support them, be in a position to help them be successful in the right way for, whatever stage they're at and whatever those priorities are. Specific to financing, we have a wide range, it kind of runs the gamut. Commercial real estate, construction lending, term loans, equipment acquisitions, SBA financing, working capital lines of credit, and the list kind of goes on, but those are the main ones. I also live here in Central Oregon with my wife and 2 daughters, 12 years old and 14 years old. And we love being here. So that's a bit about me. And now for my esteemed panel. To my left is Tom Schnell, Finance Officer with Business Oregon. Tom has over 30 years in finance, 25 of which in commercial banking. He's been involved in both debt and equity finance. His experience ranges from serving small startup companies to large corporations, which makes him a great fit for this panel today. And I've personally worked with Tom a lot over the years and can personally attest to that. His experience is in agriculture, real estate, asset-based equipment, lines of credit, and royalty-based financing, which I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting to me, the royalty. It's not like kings and queens financing, is it? No? Okay. In his current position with Business Oregon, he works to develop economic vitality for Oregon businesses by helping to create, retain, expand, and attract businesses that provide sustainable living wage jobs throughout public-private partnerships and leveraged funding opportunities for companies and entrepreneurs. His resume goes on, and there's a bit more on the website if you care to check it out, but that's just a snapshot of Tom, and he's a great advocate here in the community. To his left is Jenn Lynch, Fund Manager, Bend Venture Conference Growth and Impact Funds. She's a managing partner at Portland Seed Fund, an early stage venture capital fund that invests in capital efficient, high growth companies in Oregon and around the Pacific Northwest. Since 2010, Jenn has managed venture funds that have invested in more than 100 companies across a variety of sectors, including software, consumer products, cannabis, clean energy technology, biotechnology, biomedical devices, and more. Jenn is a limited partner in the BVC 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 growth funds and an investor in multiple Cascade Angels funds. And her resume also goes on, and if you care to know more, check out our website, maybe Google her, whatever else. But just given our limited time, wanted to give you all a snapshot of who our panel was here today. And actually, is there anything about that you feel would be important for the audience to know about your backgrounds that I missed?
Let's go.
Let's dive in. All right, before we dive into our first question, just quickly to set the stage, there's many ways businesses can gain access to capital And so we have just a cross-section here today, 3 ways in which they can do that. Myself with U.S. Bank, kind of representing the traditional bank financing. Tom, who obviously has experience across the board, but currently with Business Oregon, representing that government piece, that financing piece from there. And then Jenn with the equity and investment capital. And we all, in this ecosystem here in Central Oregon, kind of work collaboratively together to try to direct the businesses we encounter in the best way possible to meet where they're at in their life cycle and what's going to meet their priorities. So I've been impressed with just that collaborative nature across the board. So let's dive in. So let's start at the start. So question 1, for an early stage business starting out, where can they go to begin evaluating the best path forward for gaining access to capital and or funding? And why don't you start us off?
I would start off by saying right here. I mean, that's why we're here. And so Ben Venture Conference is a catalyst in the Northwest to do that. Jenn has a very broad background and experience in that, so I would say definitely connect. But there's a lot of different ways. When you're starting up a small business, so as a small business owner, my wife and I own a small business, and where do you start for looking for capital? And the first thing I would say is connect with EDCO, connect with the Ben Venture Conference. Great opportunity to start right here. You can look around. There's a lot of investors here. There's a lot of people here. We've got Business Oregon representative here. My boss right here. We do the debt side. I've got Ricardo Lopez in the very back there. He does the equity side, helping fund funders. The other thing I would look at is, if you have not done so, connect with your Small Business Development Center. They are huge in helping businesses connect, get your business. You're going to need a couple of things. Number 1 is you're going to need a business plan. Put together a pitch deck. Get your projections, your financing in order. Small Business Development Center can help. SCORE is another opportunity, a great opportunity to connect with a SCORE mentor. We have a lot of SCORE mentors. SCORE mentors are people who have owned businesses, and what they do is they just mentor other businesses in areas that they need. Right here in Central Oregon, we have a organization called Opportunity Knox. It's another great opportunity Knox, get it, to connect and to throw ideas on with other business owners as far as things to do, not to do. OEN is another good one. Oregon Entrepreneurial Network, a great opportunity to connect with them. And I'm going to say also, I'm very impressed with the Secretary of State. Oregon Secretary of State has put together a guide on how to start a business. And if you haven't seen it, go to the Secretary of State, look up how to start a small business. It is very detailed. Recently, I just went through it myself to see, because hey, I've run businesses before. I've run commercial banking centers. I don't need it. I went in there and I was blown away about how detailed it was and how precise it was. And so there's a great opportunity right there to connect there too, to find out how to start a business. We just saw the CPA on what different organizational structures. It has funding. It has who to contact. It has just a great amount of resources for you.
Yeah, perfect.
I will add, for those of you who've done all of those things, which you should have done, right? Like that's a good checklist, and I would make the exact same one. And let's say you get to the end of it and you realize what you actually need is venture capital. What you really need is a private individual or someone who doesn't make you fill out a bank form or a loan form in order to take the next step with your business. And a number of you I know have been in that position when you don't have a thing that is lendable. And that is a real category of new business. And so where do you go for $1, right? And this is when you're always told you're supposed to go to your friends and family. Well, I have some fairly wealthy friends, and none of them are writing a $25,000 check for me to quit my job and go figure it out on my business. It's not going to happen. And that is true for the vast majority of entrepreneurs, especially here in Oregon. We're a capital-constrained state when it comes to that kind of angel and friends and family money. And if you aren't blessed enough to sort of have that rich uncle sitting in your pocket, then it does feel like you don't know where to even start. And again, I'm gonna point you to EDCO. and its equivalent in other cities. There's a role called a venture catalyst that exists at many of the economic development agencies around the state. That person's whole job is to know people like me and what we are looking for when we make a first investment. And they also know angel investors. These are really useful human beings. We have one here in Bend. Her name's Deanne. She would be delighted to talk to you about your company and help point you in the right direction. And the other thing that you need to be doing is making yourself aware of the sorts of financing that are available for idea stage companies. And that's usually going to end up being an accelerator or an incubator. You're too early for a venture capital fund really to take a look at you. And so think about, whatever it is you're working on, I swear to you, there is a Techstars for that, or there is a 500 startups cohort for that. And making yourself aware of those large formalized accelerator incubator programs is one of the very best uses of your time at that early idea stage, because they are used to taking a swag on an extremely early idea. And the third place you should be looking for money, quite frankly, is your customers. When you get to the point at which you're asking other people for money, we like to see that someone has given you money to work on your idea. And that non-recurring, that NRE revenue, that sort of like somebody just paid you to build a custom version of it and so you could get it out there and try it. We love it, love to see it. It means that someone values what you're working on enough that they were willing to pay you for it, even when it was in its very earliest stages. Don't worry if it's not the final product, and don't worry if you didn't sell a subscription. If somebody paid for what you did and they liked it, that's super meaningful to everybody who's thinking about taking an investment in your company in the future.
Yeah, no, it's great. So that's where to go. You laid out a lot of resources. I'm going to go off course here a little bit. It might sound obvious, but why are some of those things that you pointed out important? Setting up a business plan, honing those things in. If you can speak to any about, the why behind that for those businesses.
You bet. I mean, part of it is, I talk about VC to BC, venture capital to business credit. And at any one point in time, you can fall into any one of those categories and or go back and forth between those. And so on the equity side, and I'm not going to speak for Jenn, I'll let her speak for it, I'm just going to speak from my experience, is one of the things I'm taking a look at is I primarily focus in on two things, and that is the team and the product or service that they have. I want to know what product or service they have. Is it viable? Is it sustainable? Can you make money doing it? I want to see the team. I want to see, can they pull it off? And can they make it successful? And if you don't think the team is important, think of McDonald's. Out of a rating of 1 to 10 on the top 10 hamburger joints in the nation, you know where they fell? Number 11. And the reason being is they've got an incredibly good team. And so when you take a look at it, we take a look at a team. On the bank side of it, what we want to see there is we want to see that they have the ability to repay the debt, correct? So I also want to make sure that they have that ability. So when I take a look at it, thank you, Jenn. When I take a look at it, what I want to take a look at is, have you put together a business plan to, especially a business plan, I want to see what are you thinking. Put your ideas on paper so that I know that you have a coherent thought and idea. And then I want you to put that in a projection for financials. And then I want you to tie those two together. Because what I'm taking a look at is saying, is your idea, can it make money? And do you have the right team together to do it? And this is the hard part. A lot of times people that are seeking funding, whether it be equity or it's debt, they've got this great idea. And it may be a good idea, but I've taken a look at software companies that I take a look at and say, I love your software, and I'll never pay you a dime for it. I've taken a look at teams that I loved their product. Their product was off the chart. And I looked at that team, and I'm going, you're the wrong team to do this. So this is why it's important to talk to a Deanne back here, a Jenn. She's got a wealth of knowledge, a Ryan, who's got a wealth of knowledge, financial. And what I would say is talk to them. And sometimes, I hate to break the news, but your baby's ugly. And it ain't gonna work. And that's the hardest thing, because people are like, well, I've got a business and I should get all this money. And the answer is no. You still have to qualify.
Well, and to Tom's point, so he's saying the word team, and I don't want, don't gloss over this. What he means is more than one person. It is very hard for us as investors and as loan makers to sort of look at a single person and ask them to bear the burden of the financial and organizational pain that's involved in starting a new business. It is hard. Those of you who are doing it know it is hard. And the more people you have to spread that burden around, not just sort of like who's good at doing what, but financially, this is important. 3 people can, take a third of their time off work a lot easier than one person can quit their job. And we, and what that means realistically is the company has longer to figure out its product market fit. And the longer you can stretch that, that experimental phase, the more likely you are to get it right. And the more people you have at the table, again, the longer shot you get at it. We also worry when someone shows up and they have not convinced even a single other person to take a risk with them. I know that sounds hard. It is hard. But if you're asking strangers to give you money to quit your job and finance your business, whether it's any of us, honestly, you need to be able to convince one other person to help you with this job. They also need to believe just like you believe. And that first follower is going to be the most important person that you bring into the fold. And they may not stay with you forever. You may not last forever. But we need to see that you are willing to share your work with a group, and you are willing to admit that you don't know everything about where your business is going and how to get there, and that you need the wisdom and lived experience of someone else in order to help.
So don't give up your day job.
Yeah, you can give up your day job. You can do whatever you want. Just get someone else to help you do it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was thinking about the why from the bank perspective, because I think it's maybe a little more obvious when you're coming to an investor. You're literally asking them to invest their dollars in, and somewhere along the way that gets lost in translation when we're looking at it from the bank side. We're our investors also, so the why is usually why would anybody want to invest in this company? Why is it going to be sustainable? For all the reasons you guys just described, but the only other added component from the bank side, not the only one, but one other added component from the bank side is, like you mentioned, the debt repayment. So seeing the profitability, the historical, the cash flows, can it service its existing debt along with the new pro forma debt? But you guys nailed the why. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. This one's going to be for Jenn, because I was just personally curious about this. So as an investor, fund manager, are there consistent or common themes in the companies you've chosen to invest in? And if so, what are they, and why do those characteristics draw you to invest in those companies?
Okay, so what percentage of startups completely fail and go entirely bankrupt and everyone loses all of their money? 90.
Percentage?
70,
Is lots a percentage?
70 and 90.
You got a 90 over here.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So what we try to create, so with the people who come in and they ask for money, and this is probably true, maybe it gets less true, sort of the businesses in which we invest tend not to, they have pro formas, but they do not have anything else. In general, they don't have 3 years of past historical finances that I can look at and sort of say, like, yes, they do what they say they do. And so what they are doing when they come in and they are asking us to believe in a future is, in general, they are creating this bubble, sort of a halo bubble of invincibility around them. And we mathematically know that their odds of succeeding are not great. But they are able to convince us that they are going to succeed. And so how? Because obviously we would not invest if we thought they were going to fail. We send them away. Obviously we believe in everybody that we invest in. Obviously, we believe all of them are going to be our next 10x or 30x or 100x or IPO. And we wouldn't write the checks if we didn't. And so how do they do that, right? That's the question, is how do they convince us of that? And it sort of comes back to, everything that Tom laid out, that team, traction, product, proof, pitch. We walk it down the line every single time. Who's at the table with us, and do they have the right skills to take this thing to at least the next round of financing in order to keep it around? And what kind of traction do they have? Has anyone given them any money for this thing that they are trying to, to tell us is going to be a profitable business? So that they have any traction, whether that's contracts or maybe it's even non-dilutive funding from the government. There are lots of ways that we can sort of take a look at that. Is the product compelling and novel and have a competitive advantage? Is it something, is it actually moving the ball forward? There are plenty of profitable and potentially lucrative companies that have come to pitch to my fund, and I see a product that is not moving the ball forward for anyone. And I will, if you want to privately talk about some of those terrible companies that we've seen, I would be delighted to tell you about them. If it's a terrible product, whether or not it's making money, we just generally tend to pass. And is there proof? So are there outcomes? Nobody's purchasing this thing unless it does something for them. And I don't care what you're selling. It can be coffee. It can be a boat. It has to be doing something for them. Otherwise, they are not going to repurchase. They're not going to tell other people that they should buy it. You don't get a net promoter score out of something that doesn't do anything for you. So what is the proof? And then can they pitch? So if they cannot explain to me in a coherent way how they are going to return capital to my investors, this is not me personally. I manage a fund of a lot of other people's money. I have a responsibility to get them their money back and make them a whole bunch of money. And if you cannot explain to me how you're going to do that for me, then I know that you can't do it for anyone else either. And they have to be able to explain it to Tom, and they have to be able to explain it to a bank and to a bigger bank behind you, right? And they have to be able to explain it to future equity investors, and they sure as hell better be able to sell their product. They better be able to, to explain what they're doing to potential customers. That's pitch. It's not just standing on a stage for 5 minutes with a bunch of slides. It's giving a compelling reason why somebody should invest their time and money in this thing. And we're looking for that combination. We really do need to see all the things in order to feel comfortable and, again, create that bubble of invincibility around them. And I am positive that every single person that we sign up is going to be, at least a 20x for me, even though I know those numbers, same as you.
And they say finance is boring, right?
It's so fun, right? You guys want to do this?
No, your passion is not lost on me, and I feel like I speak for the group there. How are we doing on time?
I don't know what time. Yeah, Erin's.
We're doing okay.
If she's not in here, we can just keep talking.
I'm gonna combine. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna combine a couple questions though for Tom. I know you and I have met with a lot of different businesses over the years, and really just having this same meeting, right? We're just trying to put our heads together, strategize where they're at, what their priorities are, and then really guide them or direct them to the best place for this access to capital. You've been on the equity side and the debt side. Some of these businesses may be in that gray area, maybe not quite early stage where it's very clear and obvious it needs investment, equity, but not, or maybe getting close to that kind of area. Can we take on some debt? Can we prove out some numbers? So from your perspective, if you have a client who's in, or a business who's in that space, what are the things you're talking to them about? What are the things you want them to know about themselves and their business and their priorities? And what are the things that you're hearing from that will help guide them in where they should best go? Take on some debt at that point, or equity, or a combination of the both?
Yeah, and Jenn, great. I'm just going to build on what you said there. Great way layout on it. And so when I'm talking to a business, there's a couple things I'm looking at, and really what I look at is their end game, and that is, what is your motive behind having a business? And really I see two different areas. One is they want to grow the business and they want to exit it and make money exiting the business. So high growth, high potential. And that aligns with an investment strategy that as an equity investor that I want to see. As an equity investor, the last thing I want to see is a business who is what I call a zombie. And a zombie is one that we love, by the way, debt side, we love zombies, so there's nothing wrong with zombies, okay? It sounds bad, you like a zombie business? No, we love zombies, and I'll tell you why. A zombie business is one that has no intention of selling. So as an investor, how am I going to get my money out if I invest in this company and you expect to run it as a family business for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I need my money back, okay? So that's the first thing I hear is, what is your end game? What is your motive behind it? There are some that just, they want a lifestyle. They want to own this business. They want to hire people. They want to run this business. That can tend to lead into a lending side. So really what I take a look at is already what Jenn said. I'm not going to repeat that, but what is your end game? What is your motive? And then what I want to see, is there an exit strategy? As an investor, I need to know that there's an exit strategy. As a lender, and Ryan, I hate to do this because everybody here now is going to become a commercial lender, okay? But your and I's job is really simple, and that is I need to know 5 things. I need to know where the money's going to go. I need to know why you're borrowing. I need to know how I'm going to get repaid, and that's going to be primarily through cash flow. Number 4, I need to know how I'm going to get repaid. Okay, and that's usually through guarantor support, and that's why we ask for guarantees and take a look at other assets that are out there. And number 5, see number 3 and 4 if you don't think repayment's important. I want to know how I'm going to get repaid. And that is usually through collateral support. And so those are the things I'm talking to with a business is, do you have cash flow available? And one of the things Jenn mentioned, what is, Kaufman's study just did one recently, 75% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Here's what's fascinating. You get connected with a commercial lender, with an SBDC, with a Jenn, with an EDCO, that percentage goes up to 65% success rate. That goes back to, why do we ask for business plans? Why do we connect them with a mentor? It's because the success rate absolutely skyrockets. We want to see, and I mean, as an investor, as a lender, we want to see you successful. So if we bring you bad news, it's not that we don't like you, we don't want you to fail. Because if you fail, we fail. And so that is why we're constantly saying, this is what we need from you. This is, do this and this. As a business owner, sometimes I don't want to hear that because I love my baby. You may not like my baby, and you're trying to help me put some lipstick on it.
True, but you also don't want yes people around you. And you don't need yes people around you. You need people to tell you the truth honestly.
And there's a misnomer on it. Just real quick here, debt, equity, which one do I like? The answer is yes. But I remember back when the dinosaurs roamed and I went to college, my finance professor said, you can have too much debt for the amount of equity you have, but you can never have too much equity for the amount of debt you have. So what do you think you need to focus in on first? Now, everybody thinks they need to go out and raise capital, but sometimes over 50% of businesses never take on any type of financing outside of what they provided. You can come up with it on your own savings. A lot of times people don't realize this, but profits from the business can be actually put back into the business to grow your equity base, right? So get profitable as quickly as possible if that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, you nailed it. I was actually just going to open it up to any final thoughts that you two had, because I do know we're coming up on time here in a little bit. Well, there's going to be a Q&A session, isn't there? They're going to ask questions.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, I just didn't know if there was, because I'm kind of dictating the course of this part of the Q&A. So if there was anything else, I guess, on your mind that you thought would be relevant, important for this group, this audience, businesses in general, to know as it relates to access to capital and funding that we've been talking about, now's your time.
I'm okay. I think the only thing I would like to say is that, there are obviously options that are not up here on the stage right now. And so like Brex comes to mind, your credit cards come to mind, factoring comes to mind. What works for you is going to be what works for other companies in your space. And having that tight connection with other people who are doing what you're doing is one of the, understanding sources of capital is one of the biggest benefits of being friends with your competitors. So go find them, go make friends with them and ask them where they're getting money. And the answer might surprise you. And it's definitely, we are not the end all be all of options for financing your business.
And one thing I'm just going to, you're going to be sick and tired of me saying this, but going back to something Jenn said, get an advisory board. Now, it doesn't have to be formal. It can be a very informal advisory board, but get somebody or a group of individuals. What I would say is if you have investors, definitely have them as a good quality sounding board. Get I always say a three-legged stool. Get a good attorney, a business attorney, get a good CPA, and a CPA that knows your business, meaning not all CPAs deal with that type of business. If you are in manufacturing and they focus on construction, probably not the right one. So get somebody on that, and get a good financial commercial banker, somebody like a Ryan Brown here, because he understands the business and during good times. I mean, how many people say the last 3 years have been very interesting? Okay, I am so thankful that I knew a really good commercial banker, thank you, Ryan, that was able to be with me during that period of time. And, Jenn has seen a lot of stuff. Do not be afraid to connect with him. EDCO has been a rock solid force through this entire time. They've got a lot of people there. But if you notice what I'm saying here, it's all about connectivity. It's about relationships. It's about having that synergy with a lot of different people. You're not doing this alone. Connect with people, you're already doing this right here, okay? But connect with individuals who can help you with that journey, because otherwise it is a very hard and lonely journey. So don't be afraid to connect.
Yeah, and I would just close the loop with, this ecosystem here in Central Oregon is strong. It is collaborative. If literally, there's been so many times I can't count where businesses have come with an opportunity, and I have not been able to be the one to execute what they want for them, but I've done everything within my power to get them to the right place so that it is. And that's sometimes not even if it's with an equity person with a business organ. That may be with a different commercial lender here in our community, and that's okay. Because ultimately the focus has to be on what's best for the business, what's best for the people, and that's okay with us. So we'll live and die by that.
It's an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. There's so many people I can think, friends of mine who own businesses, I wish they were here to hear this, because this has just been great. So thank you. So as a reminder, when you ask a question, I'm going to repeat it back into the microphone so our friends watching virtually can hear the question. So just know that that's why I'm doing that. Questions about money, anyone?
We must have covered it all.
You did great.
Well,
You missed the first
missed
question,
it when we said
didn't
EDCO.
Yeah,
So the best first place to start is EDCO.
Yes.
yeah.
The best first place to start is EDCO. Patty. Yes.
Yes.
So this is a question about the team. Who do you like to see on the team? Spouse, experts in the field? Give us some more specifics about building a team.
Yeah, totally.
Great question.
And to the spouse question, I'll say that we at Portland Seed Fund have actually invested in a number of husband and wife teams and don't shy away from it. There are other venture capitalists who won't do it. So, I think just read the room, right? Like if you've got some folks who just won't even take a look at it, then it's not worth your time to talk to them. But, we had a husband and wife co-founder team go public last year, and we're totally okay with that setup. On the team. So we like to see sort of those pillars of operational execution, more so than like 3 people who are super good at the product, right? Like, does that make sense? There has to be someone who understands the financial workings of the business such that they will keep it afloat. who's responsible for making sure that we are spending this money that we are about to be given or invested in wisely. And it doesn't have to be a CFO. It can be a part-time CFO. It can be a financial advisor. But there has to be somebody that we know is a control on the investment capital. And I think that's pretty reasonable. We like to see, obviously, a product founder, somebody who is passionate about the business problem and passionate about the customers and passionate about the solution that you're solving. And then we like to see someone who's responsible for customer success. So who is going to make sure that once you sell this thing, they have a good experience with it and turn around and promote it to other people? And I would say that's kind of our basic three legs. We invest in extremely early stage businesses at Portland Seed Fund. When you get further up the ladder, and when you're talking to banks, they are going to want to see a lot more depth and breadth there. But we need to understand at my very earliest stage, when I am very used to seeing these sort of very tiny teams, we really do need to know that the money is being cared for, that there is someone who's extremely passionate about the thing that's being built, and that there's someone who is passionate about those customers, the people who pay you money for the thing that you are building, whatever it is, and making sure that they have a good experience.
Something I would add on to that, Dr. Bueller, is that take a hardcore look at yourself and ask, where are you lacking in your ability to manage the company? And what I mean by that is I have a small business that I have, and I had to take a look at it, and I'm decent at the finance side of it, I think, right? Okay, my banker said yes. And so, I was good at the product design. I was good at everything except for what I realized was I was not good at the branding. And what I did is I needed to go out and find somebody who could support that and was really good at, left brain, right brain. I'm really good at one side, but I wasn't really good at the other. And so I had to go out and reach out and find somebody that could help me in that area. I also needed somebody to help me with, some of the other areas, the design concept of the manufacturing, that type of stuff. I actually reached out to OMEP and Oregon Manufacturing Extension Program, and they were able to help me tremendously with what I was needing. The one thing I would say too is, and I think, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I say I think this is important to you. I know from the lending standpoint it is, and that is one word I would call is integrity. And I need to know that the management team has integrity. And what I mean by that is we recently saw a company that I wanted to invest in. I loved their product. I wasn't real sold on their management team. And one of the things I told them is that you need to have a board of directors. And they came back to me with a very, very nice, solid board of directors. I was impressed. They failed to realize I live in this community and I know every one of them. And so what did I do? I picked up the phone and I called them. And the first one was like, yeah, I had a conversation with them, but I have no clue what you're talking about. The next one I called, they said, yeah, they called and I gave them some ideas, but I'm not on their advisory board. You think I made an investment?
Yikes.
I stayed away from that, because if you'll lie about the small things, you'll lie about the big things. And character, if you've ever heard of 5 C's, character is one of them. And I want to know that during the bad times, you're going to make that loan payment just the same way as you did during the good times. I want to know as an investor that if you're running into troubles, that you're going to pick up the phone and talk to me. And I don't know, and you can add on to that. You've seen a lot more deals than I have and been through a lot, so.
Well, I was going to say, just for us, that's kind of the cornerstone, the character piece, who we're banking with, who we're lending to, because obviously, there's good times, there's bad times. You mentioned it. Obviously, just a couple years ago, we went through some pretty rocky times, and it showed people's character. And that's just such a huge piece. I mean, there is some baseline things in the lending space that really need to be demonstrated, but that character piece means so much more than I think a lot of our borrowers really truly understand. And then the only other, and I know this question was mainly for Jen, but when it does get into the lending side, having good, clean financial statements is huge. Not only having the good financial statements, so it's like they're very reliable, dependable, but also having somebody who understands them and the context behind them and the trends within them to be able to articulate that to the bank goes a long way, because we've had successful businesses who don't have that, and it just makes doing things and the support. We can still get there, but it's just much more challenging, and you build a ton of credibility with your investor, your lender, whoever it is, if you have good, clean, reliable financial statements. So I know that's not the sexy answer, but I'll just put it out there because it's true.
I think it's
You
pretty
mean a balance
sexy.
sheet actually needs to balance?
I think
Most
it's
of the
sexy,
time.
Ryan. I think it's just very reasonable, actually. Very reasonable, because you're going to have to make that happen anyways, right? Question from you.
How much weight, if any, is given to a bootstrap business versus one that raises outside capital?
This is a fun question. How much
Lending in,
How much weight, if any, is given to a bootstrap business versus one that is, what was your second part?
that raises outside
That raises outside money. So bootstrap versus outside money. Is there any kind of scaling there?
So, I mean, we love it, obviously. Like, we like to see that it's possible to get to profitability on revenue, like on sales. Like, that's awesome, right? Like, that is that's kind of 101. But it's not the end-all, be-all for us. There are plenty of products that are so complicated that we understand it's going to take a significant amount of capital in order to get them to the point where they are, generating sufficient cash flow to pay their people. What we want is a business that can grow quickly and that we can get out of quickly. To Tom's point about getting paid back or getting paid payments on his loans, we need to get out of these investments. We need to see that this thing, with an infusion of outside capital, can exit in our perfect world 5 to 10 years. And sometimes when we see a bootstrap business, we start to wonder if it is something that just wants to be like a lifestyle, which is an awesome business, and you can get mighty rich off of one of those. And I like strongly recommend it if you've got that flywheel going. It's a great idea. But what we want to do is be in a business where our capital can make a difference. It can help you hire the 2 salespeople you need in order to triple sales, or hire the branding person that you need in order to triple sales. Like, we would like to see a place where our capital can make a difference. And if I don't feel like it's going to make a difference because you've got a profitable business already, or you're doing great, then we start to wonder, is that maybe the right choice for us, or do we go elsewhere? So my asterisk is, there are plenty of companies that have been bootstrapped for 6 years, and then they come to us and they say, you know what, we've changed our mind, we're ready to go. Like, let's go. And we listen when they come in and they say, we know how to run this business. We're ready to 10x it. We're ready to 100x it. And we are delighted to do those investments. It does not always work like that. There are, so I know at the state sometimes, some of the state programs I'm involved with, we only look at businesses that are less than 2 years old. Or there are going to be criteria that sometimes those sort of legacy businesses that are ready to pivot and hockey stick, like, they may not be a fit for every single opportunity. But I'm always happy to take a look when one of those comes in.
Something to add, Ryan?
Well, bootstrap, I guess. I'm working with a lot of the snooze businesses, like he was saying, that have been
Somewhat more polite than zombie.
Yeah.
Neither of them. I think
Which-
these are great businesses.
They're
Make someone
great.
a lot of money.
They're phenomenal. We love them, and I guess just kind of that point, it's a lot of them that I work with bootstrapped, from the beginning, but they have decades in it now, family businesses, generational. And just to touch on that, I guess it means a lot to us because it means everything to them. So going back to that character thing, we're all in, they're all in. That's just from my 2 cents on that.
I went just to back up for 2 minutes to this character thing that both of them mentioned in spades. Note how character is not the same as a degree from Stanford, or character is not the same as being 23 and male, or character is not the same as having, a 10-year career at Intel and then going into your semiconductor business. It's something off to the side, right? It doesn't discriminate. And we find that evidence of character and grit in a wide variety of people. And I imagine you guys do too.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, I think we had another question. Yes.
Not all deals look the same. What would be your advice for creating a win-win for both the investor and the company?
So not all deals look the same. What would be your advice for creating a win-win for both the investor and the company?
I mean, so I only like kind of understand. When you say not all deals look the same, I mean, it's true that like as an investor, we have to compare apples to oranges to carrots. To shoes, right? Like we're looking across, at least in my fund, and banking is similar. Yeah. You're looking at a wide variety of businesses, and yes, you are asking us to compare things that look very dissimilar. And so where we do look for, but underneath it all, we've got these same similarities. What's the revenue? What's the EBITDA I can get out of this company? Like, are they making money? And if not, when are they going to make money? And what percentage of their money is going to end up being earnings at the end of the day, at the bottom of the balance sheet? Like, that is something that is a constant number that I can compare percentage-wise across businesses really easily. And when am I going to get out? Again, that's a thing that as an investor, it's important to me. And if the answer is 50 years from now because you're building a spaceship company, I can't even with these funds that are investing in space tech. That is a no. That's a no from my fund. We want out much earlier than that. Other people, totally. Go do it. Have fun. Go to space.
We wouldn't be in that space probably either, but obviously we have different priorities. And I was trying to think back to what your question was, right? Like, how is it mutually beneficial? Because, I mean, we're on the lending side, but that's literally what we're thinking about, right? And just, I guess the only thing I'd add to that is that's why it's critical when we're working with our businesses, we understand what their priorities are and why. Because a lot of times they're coming with a financing need. They don't necessarily know what vehicle that is, but if we can understand what they're trying to accomplish and why and what those priorities are, then we can internally vet that out and dissect it and really come with a customized proposal that does exactly what you're saying. It's beneficial for them because it's accomplishing that, but it's also kind of mitigating the risk and keeping the bank, that risk profile appropriate. Does that make sense?
And I would just say that we all want a win-win here. And if it's a win-lose, we're out. And so there's a misnomer out there that there's not capital out there. I have never seen in my entire career the amount of money available out there right now, whether it's on the bank's balance sheets, whether it's investors. There is a ton of capital out there right now. What is lacking is what I call the access to that. Now, the access to that is really, I hate to say this, but you still have to qualify for it. Whether it's an investment, whether it's grant, whether it's lending, you still have to qualify for this. And this is where sometimes people think, I started a business and everybody should just flock to me. And no, you still need to qualify for it. I need to know that I'm going to get a return on my money, or I need to know that I'm going to get a return, of my money. And so that's the big difference there. So the best thing you can do if you're looking for money is to be able to show me as an investor that you have a product and a team that I can believe in and that you're going to have an exit strategy. If it's from a lender standpoint, I need to see that I'm going to get repaid, and here's the key, repaid on time and as agreed. Because I've had people, well, I repaid you. Yes, but I had to call you every single month to get that payment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about on time and as agreed. And the more that you can do that, full circle around from the very beginning when we first started and ask, what do we need? The business plan, the pitch deck, the pro formas, the financials, all that stuff we take a look at to determine those things. So if you want to be successful, get connected with a Jenn, with a Ryan, with an EDCO, and with an SBDC, and have them work with you to develop a plan to show that you have the ability to do those things, and you'll be a lot more successful.
Yes, in the back.
Yeah, I'm wondering if a startup comes to you and they want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement before they'll talk to you, is that a non-starter?
This is a great question. If a startup comes to you and they want you to start a non-disclosure, is that a non-starter for you? Is that a deal breaker?
Yes.
You can hear a
Yes.
pin drop and there's
I-
carpet in here.
all I do is look at business plans. I got 30 in my inbox since I got up this morning at 7 a.m. So the odds of me hearing a business plan or a pitch from a company like yours is 100%. And therefore, I am instantly, under some kind of violation of a non-disclosure agreement, literally by turning on my computer. It's impossible for me in what I do. Now, other VCs are different, and they have other processes that may, allow them to sign something saying that they are not going to look at a competitor or that their brains will never think about a competitive option. But in my personal line of work, where I see a whole lot of businesses that are very early stage, it is not possible for me to sign something like that. So, yeah.
I was actually talking more about if they have a patent pending, and that's an integral part of their business plan, but not necessarily the whole.
Well, if they've got a patent pending, it's been filed. So an attorney's seen it, and someone is.
For the first year, a patent that's pending can be not published. So there's a year window there.
Yeah.
You have an unpublished patent pending. Go out and talk to a potential investor,
Mm-hmm.
and then get feedback and see if it has traction before they take the effort to.
So what he's asking is like, okay, if there's IP and it is so sensitive that there's something filed but they're not talking about it yet, can they go out and raise money? And again, we're extremely conservative about this. We do not want to get sued by you or by anybody else. And my instinct is to protect my business. And again, knowing that we may involuntarily be in violation, by reading your investment terms, or it gets tricky for us. We will do it under extremely rare circumstances, and generally when we are very close to an investment. But not to open an email or to have a first meeting. That's too hard. It's too hard. Just in my line of work, I don't know. What do banks do? Do you sign something before you have a meeting with someone?
I was going to say it's been very rare when those come up. There's usually a very intentional and purposeful circumstance behind it, and so there's ways in which we can work through that. But in my personal experience, it's been rare.
Yeah, and we're kind of like you, Jen. I mean, we, as a government agency, we're governed by state law, and so you can put whatever you want in that non-disclosure agreement. We have to go by state law, and so, you can say it's a deal killer. I'm just going to look at you and say, yeah, we're not going to sign it, because we're already. If you want to see what we're bound by, here's the state law. You can take a look at it, and if you like it, great. Send it to me. If not, then we're not going to move forward on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to add on to that, the privacy, security, regulations that we're bound by are pretty strict as well. So.
And a lot of the stuff I've seen over the years, frankly, what they were saying that we don't want you to know about this, this, and this, I could do a Google search and within 5 minutes know all the information that you don't want me to know about.
People do abuse that NDA, and that's another reason why some of us are shy about it.
Yeah. How do you pitch your idea if you're like, it's really, really good, I just need you to sign here first? Okay, I have another question over here.
Is there an easier way to get ahead in that inbox? So you said you open your email.
Oh, is there an easier way to get to the top of the
SEO?
inbox for Jenn Lynch? Is there an easier way to get to Jenn?
We one of the things that we have been saying since the very I've been with Portland Seed Fund since 2013. My partner started the fund in 2011. One of the things that we have been saying since the very beginning is that we like to think of ourselves as venture capital for the unnetworked. If we truly just sort of showed up and kept doing what everyone else was doing and only looking at things that were introduced to us or handed to us or served up to us by other VCs, we would not be adding value in this community. And so what my fund does is try and, look through that inbox. It's harder for us to do something completely cold, and this comes back to that idea of like, can you convince one other person, right? Like, is there one other person? And that other person that you convince might end up being someone we know. That never hurts. And I take referrals. Our attorneys are in the room, and former attorneys are in the room, and bankers are in the room, and all of them are not shy about handing us things, and they do it all day long. Tom sends me things all day long. Finding a referral in from someone who's not a venture capitalist is a totally great way to bump someone higher in our inbox. We've invested in a cold call out of 130 investments over the last 11 years. So leaving me voicemail is probably not going to work. It's probably not a good idea. But finding that introduction, that sort of social proof, is really helpful in moving things up the line. And being local. My fund is called Portland Seed Fund. We invest 80% of our dollars in Oregon. The other 20% come from, Washington, Northern California, and Idaho. If you are applying to our fund and your company is based in McAllen, Texas, there's an extremely good chance I'm going to hit the delete button. Without some sort of local nexus or local connection. Now, again, that's my fund's thesis. Before you email a VC, understand what their thesis is. Do they even invest in what you're doing? And do they write checks to companies that are of your stage? And are they already invested in someone who does exactly what you do? Because they will be loyal to the person they wrote the check to first, and they will probably write another check. They will probably not want to write another check to a company that's doing something very similar. So just sort of thinking through, understanding that fund's thesis. Go to their website. Go read about it on Crunchbase. Go, type them into Google News and see what they're investing in. Making sure that what you are doing is a fit with what they are doing. And remember, I have other people's money. I have promised certain things to those other people. I'm not going to break my promise and start investing in companies that are based in Latvia after telling them I'm doing a Portland fund. It would be in violation of the covenant that I have with my investors. And understanding that's an important part of our thesis, is an important part of how we do business, is the best way to make sure that you don't get deleted upon email received.
Great question. Okay, I think we have time for one more, possibly two, but it depends on what this next one. Do I have anybody else who has any other? This has been an exceedingly fruitful conversation, the three of you. Very well done. Yes. Okay, so you're really excited about a company and you invest in them, and 5 years down the road they don't make it or they do make it. What were kind of the key things? Are there, like in a nutshell, some things that you see over and over again?
I feel like the bank has like a whole math department that goes and figures that out, right? So you don't have to, they just type it into a form and they're like, well, this one's no go.
We'll get to me.
If I could tell you, I would be a multi-gazillionaire. But I'll say some things that don't hurt. So having enough capital to go figure it out doesn't hurt. I don't think any of you are smarter than anybody else, honestly. But some of you have a better shot at it because you have more capital with which to go figure it out. If we're all equally fallible, the ones who can try harder for longer have a much better chance of getting across the line. And then we also need to make sure that the market's big enough. You may have the best product in the world. You only have 3 potential people to sell it to because it is so niche, or because it is so expensive, or because it is so unavailable. We know really quickly if there's no market. And that makes a big difference. And it's one of those. This is why we call this product market fit, is that there is that sort of wobbliness that comes to an alignment between what it is that you're making and who wants to buy it. And if we find that product market fit point is in a market that's too small, that ends up being a company killer. Founder troubles and team troubles kill companies, and we try to get to the bottom of it when we're meeting with you. There's a reason why investors and lenders ask to see how your company is capitalized. We want to know who owns what, and we want to know who's in charge, and we want to understand if there's anybody who could swoop in from the bottom and take over, even if you insist that it's Uncle Steve. Uncle Steve's cool. Even though he owns 60% of the company, he's super cool. He's totally great. It's going to be completely fine. Those are the things I want to know. Early on, because that's a thing that can kill even a successful company in that first 5 years. I don't know. I got a whole list.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, a lot of times I see the very strength in an entrepreneur is the very weakness, and that is they're optimistic, and they can be too optimistic. And that is where I've seen a lot of them get in trouble. The other thing is, what I've seen too, is they don't pivot fast enough. Something's changed. Let's face it, if anybody missed the last 3 years, you saw a lot of companies that had to pivot. And I saw 2 exact companies, one pivoted, one didn't. One made record earnings, the other one went out of business. And it was all about the ability, I hate to use the word pivot, it's kind of but that's the word we use nowadays, so pivot. From a bank standpoint, I used to do the workout. So I used to go in and I was the guy that would knock on your door and tell you you were out of business. And where I saw that was a lot of times it was the same thing. They didn't pivot, or what happened is the underwriter just underwrote the loan improperly. And they were the same thing. They liked the loan, they didn't look at the fundamentals, and what they did was wrong. Banks can't afford to write bad loans. As an investor, I mean, what, 1 in 10 maybe that I hit a home run? Two in 10, that I hit a home run to make up for the other ones that I lose on.
10
on a
in
bank,
10.
I can't
The
afford
bubble, the halo of invincibility. That is where we are.
Yeah. As a bank,
They're all
as
gonna
a
be
finance person, I
beautiful.
can't do that. So,
Well, I was just gonna say, genuinely, honestly, it's very, very rare. But the one that I can actually think of that sticks out, we missed on the character assessment, honestly, and we underwrote the right numbers that we were given. But again, going back to what I was mentioning before, those numbers weren't good numbers. And as we got into it, there was also an over-leveraged situation. Not that it was per se fraudulent, but it wasn't all the leverage with us. Come to find that out later, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
I just assume they have the Lendomatic 3000 over there, and you just type everything in.
Yeah, it's more of a manual
And
process
it's
than
like
you
a
would
green
think.
light turns on the desk, and you can get your money.
It's a go. Well, thank you so much, the three of you. This was just very helpful, very interesting. I love how you put a focus on relationship base, on building your character, being honest, being reasonable, being realistic. It's been very helpful. So thank you, Jenn, Tom, and Ryan. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today.
Thanks for having us.